Okay, we've got a great show for you today on This Week in Startups. I interview my friend Anthony Casalena from Squarespace. As you know, they went public recently, and he was last on the podcast a decade ago, episode 100 or so. And now he's back 1,000 episodes later. Squarespace has grown from a couple of dozen people with him racking servers to 2,000 employees, a public company. And he was in a very candid mood. We talked about his direct listing. We talked about scaling a business, scaling a team. And he talked about all their near-death experiences as a company and why he's still engaged in Squarespace, now more so than ever, in fact. But before that, we're going to talk about some news. Adam Mosseri went on the Today Show and talked about the train wreck that is Instagram and Facebook and the Facebook papers. He actually came up with and talked about some ideas that we talked about last week on the program in terms of people taking a pause from their social media and maybe building in some monitoring tools for parents. Finally, Bevy, which is virtual events company, has fired an employee who was caught being racist on video in Williamsburg this past weekend. And there's a ton of fallout. I think this is an important discussion for startup founders and employees about your personal behavior and how it relates to your company's reputation. Stick with us. It's going to be a great episode.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by LinkedIn Marketing. To redeem a $100 LinkedIn ad credit and launch your first campaign, go to linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups. Silicon Valley Bank. For over 35 years, Silicon Valley Bank has been providing banking and financial solutions for every stage of the startup journey. Learn more at svb.com/twist. And Disruptive Advertising. Sign up for a free digital marketing audit at disruptiveadvertising.com/twist. Plus, if you go into business with Disruptive, you'll receive a $250 gift card and a free Friday to Sunday ski trip in Utah.
Okay, everybody, in our first story, Adam Mosseri says Instagram is taking a break on their project, Instagram for Kids. So we talked about this on episode 1284. When we were talking about Wall Street Journal's Facebook files. That is the moniker given to a bunch of leaked internal research and presentations and all kinds of materials coming out of Facebook over the last couple of weeks. And we also talked about how the leaker is probably going to uncloak themselves. This is, I think, if you haven't seen the movie The Insider, Michael Mann, with Russell Crowe. I think it's Russell Crowe's greatest performance after Gladiator, but it's probably tied in terms of, two different types of people, two different types of heroes. But really, absolutely go watch The Insider because it's about the whistleblower in the tobacco industry and how hard it is to be a whistleblower. This whistleblower, I think, is going to go down in history as one of the most important people of this era, potentially. Because these studies are so damning, and I think it's going to result in Facebook people resigning, and maybe lawsuits, and any number of events that will be considered a turning point in our industry. The leaked studies included a 2019 slide from Facebook's internal research. They do internal research, they fund research, which claimed that Instagram makes, quote, body images worse for 1 in 3 teen girls, amongst other negative health impacts that we know about social media. And the leaker is, in all likelihood, from inside of the integrity department. Kid you not, Facebook has an integrity department. Fate loves irony. And the lead reporter from the Wall Street Journal on the Facebook file says that many employees in the integrity department have been very fed up because they've been proposing solutions and they feel like they're being ignored. Sound familiar? Go watch the movie The Insider. Same thing happened in big tobacco. And there was also a similar cover-up inside of cars with airbags and seatbelts. Yeah, Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, where he talked about the automobile industry. I've never actually read the book, but that would be a good one to look at. So we have this long history of corporations maybe not doing what's in the best interest of the public because it would have such a bad impact on their growth and the personal wealth of individuals inside companies. So here is Adam Mosseri. I don't know when Adam joined Facebook and Instagram, but you can be certain that if he's running Instagram, he's making millions and millions of dollars a year. Maybe $10, $20 million at the end of the day with the value of all the stock options and what they'll eventually become worth. So he came on NBC's Today Show this morning, and he announced that Instagram would be putting Instagram for Kids project on hold. Really? Due to all this public outcry. 1 minute clip. I'll talk to you on the other side.
You guys have had this research. You've had this information for some time. Why not do some of this sooner?
So we've actually been working on a lot of this for years now. We do this research to shed light on problems. That's the whole point of the research, is why I'm actually proud that we do that kind of work. That work has inspired lots of interesting product changes. For instance, we announced a couple years ago we wanted to lead on the issue of online bullying.
Yeah.
And the research we did when we asked kids and teens why they didn't block people who were harassing them on Instagram was that they were worried about fear of retribution because they have to see these kids in school. And also they needed to track what was being said about them. So that inspired the restrict feature, which we launched a few years ago. So over the years, we're constantly doing this research, both internally and externally, and using it to inspire changes to the product.
Okay, so he said a whole bunch of nothing there. I mean, great. They studied bullying, but really didn't answer the question, did he? The question is really like, why is this taking so much time, and why would you ever even consider doing a kids app? So instead of doing Instagram for Kids, Mosseri says that they're going to focus on making more parental controls on Instagram's current app, which is what I said last week. No kid should be on there, and parents should have access to their kids' Instagrams in a, R-Pact, which is an app that some friends of mine had told me about, where you make an agreement with your kids. Hey, I'll let you use Instagram, but here are the rules. I need to see what you're doing there. When you post an image, I want to approve it first, or I want to be able to see your DMs. The idea that you would see DMs for an adult would be spying on each other. But with a kid, it's kind of training wheels, right? You don't let a bunch of kids go to the mall when they're 10 years old without supervision. I mean, my parents did, but it was a different era. You probably want to have some amount of supervision at a party where kids can interact on their own in the backyard or at a park, but you're kind of off to the side watching them. There's some agreement here that kids can make with their parents. And so I think that that's ultimately where this goes, is that kids who are just like when they drive a car, if you have GPS in your car or a speed limiter for a child who is now 16 or 17 years old and becoming a young adult and they want to drive the car, they're giving up their privacy of location. They're giving up the freedom to speed in exchange for getting the privilege of driving the car. Kind of there's an analogy here, I think, for social media as well. You want to use social media, there's going to have to be some guardrails. You only can drive during the day. You can't drive at night. You can't drive on the highway. You have to be within 30 miles of the house. You get the idea. So Mosseri gave an interesting answer here when asked about the leaked research. 75 seconds. I'll talk to you on the other side.
Let's talk about the kids for a second, because according to your own research, as I understand it, roughly a third of teenage girls who said when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. How do we fix that?
So I don't believe that's exactly what the research said, but I do want to be very clear that if anybody leaves using Instagram feeling worse about themselves, that's an important issue that we need to take seriously and that we need to figure out how to address. And so we have a number of ideas in the world of body image and negative social comparison. Last week, we announced that we were working on nudges, the idea that if you're going very deep in one topic, we might nudge you to try another topic. And another project that we call Take a Break. The idea being that you could put your Instagram on pause for a period of time if you're in a moment of vulnerability. Maybe you're going through a breakup or you just switched high schools.
So I know the details are being worked out, but this Take a Break idea, how will that work? When will we see that in our feeds?
So the way it would work is that your Instagram, your account, your profile, how you show up would essentially be on pause. So the specific details we're still working through, but the idea is that you wouldn't have to worry about people talking about you, addressing you, commenting on your content while you were on a break. You would basically be able to leave and then come back and pick up exactly where you left off.
This is exactly what I said last week, right? There should be timeouts on social media. You press a button and it says, I don't want anybody to view my profile. Essentially like your autoresponder on email tells people, hey, listen, I'm not here. Don't expect a response. Imagine you came to my social media profile. I did this over the summer and I said, hey, I'm taking a Twitter break because I have to focus on the book. And last week I got sucked back in, but I'm going to take another break because I keep getting pulled back in. But the ability to press a button and say, I want to be on break for the next 30 days or indefinitely, then no comments come in, no likes come in, and maybe you can't see my photos. Maybe I'm ghosted. Basically, it says, hey, Jason will be back on this date. If you do that, what that would do is give people permission to not feel compelled to check it. That's a great idea. That's why I suggested it last week. And I think it's probably a fairly obvious one, right? I think probably all of us take social media breaks, but incorporating it into the product would be great. Listen, right now, LinkedIn is going to give you $100 credit towards your first ad campaign. I want you to go to linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups and get that $100 right now. Now, why would you use LinkedIn marketing? High quality leads. We all need leads. We're all running businesses here. My leads, startup founders. Your leads might be SaaS enterprise. It might be CFOs. It might be CMOs. It might be CTOs. Who knows? Everybody's got a different product, but everybody is on LinkedIn. We all know that because we all use LinkedIn every single day. So if you're planning to launch a new campaign, you know your audience, your team is excited, and everything is going according to plan. We've all been there, except you have that one thought in the back of your head. How can I be sure that my acquisition campaign will drive high impact leads for my sales team? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you don't need to guess because when you advertise on LinkedIn, your message reaches people who are ready to engage you. LinkedIn equals business, business equals LinkedIn. You know this, it's very simple. So with 30 million companies engaging and over 71% of professionals using LinkedIn to inform their business decisions, LinkedIn can help bring your growth to the next level. Don't wait to start achieving your brand and lead gen goals. Get a $100 ad credit toward your first LinkedIn campaign at linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups. Once again, linkedin.com/thisweekinstartups for the $100. No spaces, no dashes, and terms and conditions apply because they're giving you a $100. The other thing they should incorporate into the product is turning off all of my previous posts at a certain date. So I talked to Jack about this at Twitter, and I was like, listen, I took down my entire archive. I deleted all those posts with Tweet the Leader or one of these sites because I was like, I don't even know what I said 10 years ago. I downloaded the entire archive. I put it away. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with these old tweets as I get higher profile. Somebody's going to take a tweet and maybe who I responded to, that original tweet's not there. The context is lost, etc. And in the early days of Twitter, it was like a chat room. People would go back and forth, 100 times in a thread, just saying, hey, what, whatever. It was like a much more chat roomy kind of service. So I was like, these things could be taken way out of context. I didn't say anything like super offensive or anything. I'm smart about using social media, but I was just like, I just don't want to even have this archive here. And what I tell people is like, there should be a feature where I can just automatically archive anything I've done older than X days. And I put in X days. And Twitter should do that. Instagram should do that. Instagram does let you archive photos and turn them off, but you have to do it one at a time. So they're constantly throttling this kind of stuff. So you don't have the protections or the feature you want because they do what's in their best interest, which is engagement. And they've been doing that for so long that now when it has a negative consequence, here they are when the cars crash, when it's obvious that they're disingenuous, when it's obvious that they've acted in their own self-interest. It's only when the press and the leakers hold their feet to the fire and they've got them dead to rights that they even modestly change their behavior. This is why people hate Adam Mosseri, Zuckerberg, and the whole crew at Facebook. The reason you're so hated, the reason why you're a pariah in the community is because you've made so many of these bad decisions so consistently for almost 2 decades. You keep making horrible decisions that are not in the best interest of society. And that's why people hate you. If you work at Facebook, Instagram, people hate you. People hate you for working there. And you shouldn't work there. You should go work for a company that's world positive. And if you think Facebook and Instagram are world positive, they're not. We all know they're not. And so you staying there, making all this money, it's just such a bad look. And when you watch Adam Mosseri's answers here and you see him looking down, he's ashamed of himself. It's so obvious that he's in it for the money and he's ashamed of what he's doing. That's my take on it. I feel like a lot of shame coming from him. And like his heart's not really in it, but he's in it for the money. And that's just my read on the guy. Okay. So some new features on the regular Instagram app that Mosseri mentioned, as we talked about, is users going, when they go too deep on a topic, that it could nudge them. This is also a decent idea. If you use TikTok too long, and I've had this happen, it's like, hey, you've been scrolling for a long time. Take a break. Man, and TikTok is so addicting. So the take a break feature and the nudging, I guess that could work a little bit, but really, I think the parental controls when we're talking about kids and mental health is the key to taking a break. Obviously, a great one. I'll give a lot of credit to real investigative journalism. We really have been concerned about the media. We had a big discussion with Balaji on All In episode 48. this past Friday about the media. And I have basically come to the conclusion, because I had a brunch with a friend of mine, and we've both been in journalism for a long time, and she wants to go into venture. So I was just giving her some advice. And she was kind of disillusioned a little bit with what's happened in journalism, and she's very high profile. I put journalism into a couple of buckets here. You have content creators, corporate, as Balaji would call it, but the link baiting, let's call it BuzzFeedy kind of stuff, or really a portion of BuzzFeed, because BuzzFeed has a number of these in the same umbrella. But let's just say, and then in the middle, there's like the virtue signalers who have an agenda and they fit everything into their own narrative. I put like the Vox kind of virtue signaling, like we're anti-Trump, or MSNBC, or even Fox News on the other side, or Ben Shapiro on the other side. We're just going to like really have an agenda, whether it's virtue signaling or conservatism, but not journalism. And then you have the old school journalists. And this is old school journalism. We're going to get information. We're going to really think through it thoughtfully. We're not just going to cut and paste it and, do what, Julian Assange did with his leaks, or, just do a data dump. They're being thorough, and they are methodically going through the Facebook leaks, the Facebook papers, and trying to make sense of it. And again, we had John Carreyrou do a great job with Bad Blood and his reporting on Theranos. He should have got a Pulitzer. It's crazy he didn't. They need, the Pulitzer organization needs to make up for that. They really should go back and say, we made a mistake and we want to give John Carreyrou this. Because if you make a mistake as an award show, I think you have an obligation to go back and fix it. Like if Goodfellas didn't get the award, I really think they should say, how great would this be if the Oscars every year said, we're going to look back on 10 or 20 years ago and say, this is our biggest mistake, according to the fans. The fans believe that this was actually this film should have won Best Picture, so, based on time. And it'd be like Blade Runner, or Goodfellas. Like they should have gotten more recognition. I would love to see that. So investigative journalism, huge win. When we talk about journalism, we talk about reporting. We kind of talk about it with a wide brush. There's really four buckets now. There's that content, low quality, link baiting, terrible journalism. There's the biased, agenda, driven journalism, whether it's MSNBC, Fox, Vox, whatever it is, there's an agenda. Then there's classic journalism, investigative, which I'm talking about here. And then there's the new one, which is the going direct crowd. Myself, other CEOs, founders, or who would normally be the subject, creating their own media channels. And so I think this is just a great for that classic bucket of investigative journalism to do this great. Mosseri joined Instagram in 2008 as product designer and became head of Instagram in 2018. Obviously, Kevin Systrom and his co-founder of Instagram, Mike Krieger, they really hate Zuck. It's so obvious. And they said negative things on the way out, just like the WhatsApp founders. So as I pointed out many times here, when you make people billionaires by buying their products and they hate you, that says something. That's how much Zuckerberg is hated by people in the industry. If you talk to almost anybody in the industry, and I talk to everybody, people absolutely hate Zuckerberg and they hate Facebook. They hate the way they behave. They feel like they're pissing in the well and they're causing problems for everybody because of their bad behavior, because of their product decisions. And you know who hates Zuck the most and who resents Facebook the most? The people who worked there and had great success and made a ton of money. Just go right down the line to all of the people who were part of that original team, and they are the most critical and they hate Zuck the most. That's not a really great legacy. And I think Mosseri, Zuck, and everybody over there needs to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? Is it worth it? I think you're all just sellouts and you're doing it for the money. I'll be totally honest. I don't think you do the right thing. Every chance you have to do the right thing, you don't do it. And that's one person's opinion. And I would say 90% of people in the industry have a strongly negative view of Facebook. 90% of the people inside the industry have a strongly negative view of Facebook and are rooting for its demise. So that's an interesting rub. If you are inside of Facebook, I can't tell you to do anything illegal, but I would say if you know of things inside of Facebook that are morally bankrupt or corrupt, like these people in the support division, again, I can't tell you to do anything illegal. What I would say is I have respect for whistleblowers who, because of a crisis of conscience, decide that they're going to take the risk of being whistleblowers. I actually do respect that. And I do think, there's a distinct difference between giving over the names of, people who might, I have some problems with what Assange did because he just dumped all this information. And I think he did it in a sort of Joker chaos kind of way, like Batman's Joker, like Heath Ledger Joker. Some men just want to see the world burn kind of way. But I think working with journalists who, like the Wall Street Journal, who should know about malfeasance, who should know about bad behavior, who should know about people doing things that are not in the public's best interest, I think I'm okay with that. Not only am I okay with it, I think that the people who leaked the information in Theranos, and I think the people who are leaking right now out of Facebook are, in my mind, heroes. That does not mean, just for the lawyers, I'm encouraging anybody to do that. I'm just telling you my personal feeling is that these people are heroes if they work with the journalists correctly and there's no collateral damage. Okay, next story. This Week in Startups is brought to you by Silicon Valley Bank. What's next? What if? Are we ready? Now what? These are the questions that can keep founders up at night, and no one understands this quite like Silicon Valley Bank. For over 35 years, Silicon Valley Bank has helped thousands of high-growth companies by providing scalable financial solutions along with insights and expertise that many other banks just can't. From healthcare to hardware, software to infrastructure, SVB works with companies across the innovation landscape at all stages of the journey, anticipating their needs even before they do. And by providing access to insights and in-depth reports, SVB can help you make more informed decisions and assist in turning your great idea into a great business. Which could be why 50% of US-based venture-backed tech and life science companies bank with SVB. Learn more at svb.com/twist. Silicon Valley Bank, built for what's next. Okay, I usually don't get into the Karen situation where people are behaving badly in the public, but this one directly relates to our industry. Over the weekend, I think on Saturday, there was a confrontation in a park in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, between a white woman and a black man named Frederick Joseph. Joseph recorded a portion of the confrontation and posted it to Twitter with the following tweet. At the dog park in Brooklyn with my fiance, and this white woman was threatening to call police and told us to, quote, stay in our hood because she had our dog confused with another dog who had been barking loudly. Don't understand what that means, but okay. So I started recording and she tried to slap the phone out of my hand. Here's the video in case you haven't seen it already. People behaving badly. I'll see you on the other side of the clip.
Stay in our hood? No.
I'm gonna invite everyone.
Stay in our hood? Stay in our hood. That's what, I'm sorry, what? Stay in our hood? Stay in our hood. You just told us to stay in our hood. You just told us to leave the dog park and stay in our hood.
Oh my god, did you just say that to me? Shit.
Wow. Oh, that's funny.
Wow, the Karenism, the white.
I'm sorry, you were right here, watch this entire thing. Did she just not stand here and tell us to stay in our hood?
She did.
You just told.
Obviously, this is super gross. And I don't know if the woman looks inebriated or not. Somebody mentioned on social that she might have been drunk and this kind of bad behavior, stay in your hood to a black man. I mean, really super racist. And I think there is a concern that if a Karen like that calls the police, that a police interaction could occur. And we know that sometimes police interactions go wrong. So this could be a life and death situation, especially for a black man interacting with the police. A white woman calls. There has been a long history of, bad instances in that specific dynamic. And so it turns out, as the internet is apt to do, the next morning, the woman was doxxed, and it came out she was an employee at Bevy, which is a SaaS startup that sells virtual event software. I happen to know the founder of this company, Derek Anderson, because I believe he was the founder of Startup Grind. And I think I did the first interview that Startup Grind ever had like a decade ago here in Silicon Valley. So once she was doxxed, Joseph then tweeted at the Bevy CEO and co-founder, Derek Anderson, with a screenshot to a CNBC article about Bevy bringing on black investors for their Series C round, indicating that if Anderson cares that deeply about racial inequality, maybe he should do something about this. And Derek spoke with Fred T. Joseph, that's his handle on Twitter, about his and his fiance's horrific experience from last night. This is a quote from Derek on Twitter. "So sorry to them for what happened. No one should treat people the way we witnessed. This is extremely troubling. I will update you shortly." And then on Sunday, he said Bevy HQ has zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior of any kind. Yesterday, employee engaged in behavior contrary to our values and has been terminated. We apologize deeply. So Anderson's handling of this was criticized as well, like as maybe a rash decision. Maybe people shouldn't be canceled, etc. So this tweet from Reason.com editor JD to Chili. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, JD. Here's his quote. "The correct response was to point out that the dispute involves private parties in their own lives and not your company. You failed." Yeah, see, I disagree with JD on this, because if you are going to behave in public in a really egregious way, which I think we'd all agree that this was pretty egregious. I'm not sure maybe 99 out of 100 people would say that this is really disturbing, egregious behavior. If the public believes your behavior is egregious, then it automatically will be associated with the company you work for. That's just the way the world works. If you're a flight attendant, a pilot, a waiter, a CEO, a sales executive like this woman, that's how this goes. You're responsible for your public behavior. I will point out, have these Karens not watched Karen videos before? Like, do you not know that any bad behavior, insane behavior that you used to get away with, yelling at service people, being belligerent, getting drunk and saying something stupid, saying something racist, or, I'm trying to be charitable here, you were drunk and you said something slightly racist. I mean, I don't know how charitable you could be here. Don't you know that it's going to be recorded? And don't you know you're going to suffer massive consequences? I mean, these idiots are going out there and coughing on people, or, starting fights on flights. Like, you know what's going to happen. Does anybody getting on a flight, a Karen or a Ken, without their masks, yelling at a flight attendant, not know they're going to get taken off the flight and everybody's going to videotape their walk of shame as they get dragged off the plane? Like, I think people are losing their mind in COVID. That's one of my theories, is that COVID creates like 40 or 50% of like cognitive anxiety in people. And so then when in the world something happens that is challenging for them, they automatically are at, their process is already at 50%, that maybe they have a bad day, or maybe they drank or something. And then all of a sudden they just lose their mind. So, all right, here's Frederick Joseph, who seems like a very reasonable person, who I think handled this with a lot of grace, I'll be honest. And he posted a follow-up video. So he's actually been quite responsive in his position here to explain what he thinks. So here's a minute 37. I think we should watch the whole clip, and I'll talk to you on the other side.
So I was just told that Bevy has terminated Mosseri after her racist attack against my fiance and I in the dog park. And while it's unfortunate that she had to lose her job, I do think that this brings up an important conversation about accountability, especially in a country where Black and brown people, marginalized people as a whole, have seen so little of it oftentimes, right? Having to bear the burden of racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. I think that it's important that people know that there are consequences for their actions, right? And I don't think that it's up to victims to have to coddle, people who are engaging in abuse. When I woke up yesterday morning, I didn't expect to have to be a part of this conversation. I didn't expect to go to the dog park as a Black person and have to receive, racism. So while, again, it is unfortunate what happened, I hope that, Emma learns from this. I hope that other people learn from this who engage in abusive, racist, and destructive behavior, because ultimately whether Emily lost her job or not doesn't take away the trauma that my fiance and I have. It doesn't take away the feeling of feeling like anything racist can happen anywhere. So I don't think that people should be coddled, and I do think that consequences are important. So hopefully this is a learning lesson for everybody.
Well said. Important note, Joseph is the author of The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. So imagine the statistical chances of this individual saying something racist, and they say it to the author of The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. I mean, fate does love irony. So I guess Twitter users are accusing him of inflating the situation to sell his book. That seems crazy to me. Like this whole thing was set up. No, definitely not. And I don't think that a person went to the dog park hoping to have somebody say something racist to them. Kind of crazy. One Twitter user tweeted the following at Bevy CEO, and I thought that this was a very interesting moment. Who knows if this is a real person because it's Twitter, so it could just be some trolling spam Russian account. Amy Cooper currently has a federal lawsuit against her former employer for firing her without investigation and falsely labeling her a racist. I hope this girl sues her ass too. If you don't remember, Amy Cooper was dubbed the Central Park Karen. She falsely claimed a man was trying to kill her. And she was recorded because he asked her to move her dog off an area where dogs weren't allowed. Anderson quote tweeted, this is the head of Bevy who made the decision to fire the woman who said, to get out of our hood. He said, do what is right. Let the consequences follow. I think that's pretty correct. Yeah. And if you compare that to Zuckerberg, he does what's profitable. Regardless of the consequences, and the CEO is doing the opposite. In related news, according to a Wall Street Journal article last week, adults are throwing temper tantrums at an increased rate due to the pandemic. So my anecdotal hunch was right. The statistics about these tantrums, customer satisfaction is at the lowest level since 2005, according to American Customer Satisfaction Index. This is while people are investing in customer support, and everybody understands that customer support is critically important. I think people just lose their minds in stressful situations. What's the most stressful situation you could be in modern life? Traveling at an airport during a pandemic, maybe with your kids, maybe you miss your flight, maybe you have to get a hotel room, missing your flight or a flight being canceled. That's up there in terms of modern day, stressful moments, when in fact it shouldn't be. If your car breaks down and you have to wait for roadside assistance, just be thankful that you have roadside assistance and it's not like the old days where you park the car on the side of the road and have to walk 2 miles. The FAA, quote, has initiated more than 750 investigations. The FAA has initiated more than 750 investigations pertaining to, quote, unruly passengers so far in 2021. 750 investigations. In 2019, there were 146. So it's 5x, literally 5x. That's crazy. 80% of food service workers said they either witnessed or experienced hostile behavior over virus safety measures, according to a survey done by One Fair Wage. Why are they increasing? Well, it is about stress, and people will, when they're stressed out, take it out on other humans. It's just the sad part. If you are going to do that, just take a deep breath. We're all humans. We're all feeling the stress. Be nice to each other. For the love of God, it's hard to be a service worker. If anything, even if you got bad service, have some empathy for the restaurant that can't get employees and that those employees are putting themselves at risk, and just give a 50% tip, 100% tip, and if you can afford it, and be thankful that you actually can go to a restaurant and that there's some number of them still open and in business. Now, I know some people were in the comments were really upset that I even covered that story. Or one person was, yeah, I'm out. Why are you giving this person a platform? That's interesting. I think discussing these issues on this podcast is, I think it's kind of within my right to discuss these kind of issues because I find it interesting. And it's something that startups and tech executives have to deal with, firing somebody for their personal behavior and how it reflects on companies. So I felt like I was in my right to do that. Okay, everybody, let's take a moment to talk about growth marketing and all the tactics and hacks that are out there. with me today, Jake Badsgaard. He is the CEO and founder of Disruptive Advertising, which you can visit at disruptiveadvertising.com/twist. So, some questions for you, Jake. What are some of the tips you have for marketers who are planning to take advantage of Black Friday and Cyber Monday this year?
Yeah, Jason, 2020 was a phenomenal year for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and 2021 is shaping up to be as good, if not better. We actually have a benchmark report where we're monitoring $250 million in media budgets. And we're seeing that CPMs are starting to rise in the 20 to 40% range in a lot of industries. And so I'm just worried that a lot of companies are going to get surprised that there's a lot of demand, but the competition is up as well. And if they don't have a good strategy for that, they're going to spend the same amount and get less performance, or they're going to have to spend a lot more to get the same performance. And so they've got to get on top of that.
So if you want to sign up for a free digital marketing audit with Jake and his company, Disruptive Advertising, just visit disruptiveadvertising.com/twist. And if you go into business with Disruptive, you will receive a $250 gift card and a free Friday to Sunday ski trip in Utah. We'll see you on the slopes. It's going to be a great season. All right, next up on the program, back 10 years later, his last appearance was in January of 2011, episode 112, a friend of the show, supporter of the show, Anthony Casalena, who is the founder of Squarespace, which recently went public by direct listing. Welcome back to the program a decade later, Anthony.
Thank you for having me back, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
When we met over a decade ago, you had this, let's face it, boutique, little software as a service startup, subscription service to make beautiful websites. That would solve the problem of, building a beautiful website was really expensive, time consuming. You had to go on Craigslist and find a designer. A lot has changed since then, but at its core, Squarespace's value proposition, I think, is still make a beautiful, high-functioning website. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's expanded a bit over the years. I mean, we launched in 2004, and I started programming in 2003. So I think that, the two main propositions in there was an all-in-one website building platform, do-it-yourself tool that was also incredibly design-centric. And, I think, the web has changed a lot in 18 years. And I think over the past 10 years, and especially over the past 3 or 4, we've really been focused more on commerce as well, in addition to our core in terms of websites and domains. And commerce, not just in terms of physical products, but all the other ways people are transacting online. So services, reservations, events, to-go ordering, any way our customers are transacting is something that we kind of we want to be a part of to create that kind of. Again, it goes back to the all-in-one thing. It's just the aperture is expanded now to include much more.
Yeah, I mean, people make websites. It's not just to put up a corporate website. A lot of times the actual business is, hey, come take a course on my website, subscribe to my newsletter.
Exactly.
I've got my own little e-commerce shop. And I think one of the things that was interesting to watch you build the company was you kind of kept the price the same. And then just kept adding features, which I think is a quick way to delight users, reduce churn. What's the scale of the business today? And is that in fact the strategy? Try to keep it really affordable, but then just keep adding features so that people grow with you.
Yeah, I mean, what we offer today at the price point we offer is incredible. I mean, we've been building this platform for the platform relaunched in 2012. So for the better part of a decade, all those innovations have gone kind of to one thing. We have introduced some slightly higher price plans around e-commerce and different things, but you're right. I mean, at its core, it's a really accessible price, and we're always layering in more and more and more to that core subscription. So, I mean, the scale of the business. Let's see. You were referencing 2011.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
The run rate back then was probably ballpark of 12, 13 million. And now I think as of, Q2, let me get you an exact.
Yeah, you're a publicly traded company.
Yeah, let me not mess up any numbers here.
Get them right.
Yeah, they're online.
They're online.
In Q2, we reported 778 million annualized run rate, so not in the quarter. The quarter Q2 for us was 196.
What have you learned running a company that was different, in 2010 versus today?
Wow. Well,
you
lot.
were like how old were you? I mean, how old are you now? Are you 40?
I'm 39.
You're 39. So when you were on the program last, you were 29.
Yeah.
And you started the company when you were 24 or 25. So it's basically,
24.
Squarespace is basically your entire professional career.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot
absolutely.
and you kept the CEO slot, right? I mean, a lot of times people would, in a growing business, maybe they'd say, hey, professional management. Did they ever try to push you to put in professional management?
No, I think for the past decade, that's really not been something we've talked about. I think, it's something I consider, like in terms of like, do I like what I'm doing, every single day? You ask, what's changed in 10 years? I mean, we're 1,500 people today across, and we've, done acquisitions. We're across so many different product lines. We're public, we have different constituents. I mean, that is a totally different thing than, 10 years ago, we had just done our first outside round with Index and Excel. And, we were like a year into that and totally different kind of management team, totally different. How many employees do we have back then? I had like 50, 60 when we talked.
Mm-hmm.
So much smaller. So yeah, I mean, you talk to a lot of startup founders and CEOs. I mean, the job of what you're doing in 1,500 person company is completely different than what you're doing at 60. I mean, before we got on, you were talking about, I was on CNBC yesterday talking about some new product releases we had. We got all these investor meetings now. External. All the public side of things. So you're talking to analysts. So yeah, it's totally different.
Talk about management teams over time, because we all know when you start a company, you're bootstrapping it. Maybe you got a little bit of money. Let's face it, you can't pay the salaries that people who work at giant publicly traded companies can, or salaries that people like Google or Facebook at scale get paid. So you basically grab your friends or you hire from within. And then over time, they say, hey, you got to get professional management. Hey, you got to get somebody who's done this before. And obviously, somebody who's been the CFO of a public company is not coming to work at 10, 50 person Squarespace.
Well, and they shouldn't, right? Because they're going to get bored, right? I mean, everything they're used to in terms of infrastructure. I mean, a CFO of a public company coming to 20 person Squarespace, the finance team at a publicly traded company is probably multiple times the size that they have no infrastructure. People forget. Sometimes things move very fast in a startup, but actually they kind of move really slow sometimes too. I mean, you've only got a couple engineers. Yeah, you can iterate faster because you don't have, all these eyes on you, and deploying a product that is relied on by millions like what we have is very different than there's tens of thousands of customers and we're just quickly updating. We can roll back in a second, and it's not a million. It's a different thing. But yeah, I mean, look, it's the hardest part of it, right? That the people who have all that experience, and the big managers who manage managers and all that, it doesn't apply when you're 20, 30, 40 people. And it's just a different skill set. And so
what about when you get into that middle stage, you're a tweener, now you got a couple of hundred people, it's pretty clear you have product market fit, it's scaling every year. During those years, you're probably doubling your revenue year over year, tripling your revenue, you're growing 10, 20% month over month. And now you got to make that decision. Okay, I got somebody who's in this position, who's grown with the company, but man, they're in over their head. They've never done this before. And they're telling me, hey, I got to bring in some more senior people. How did you manage that whole transitional and evolutional period? Because I hear from the boards I'm on and founders, it can be kind of the hardest thing.
Yeah, I just go ahead and say, like, I don't know, poorly. Like, I mean, you look back at that.
How honest is that?
Not that poorly because I'm here, but I mean, yeah, I look back and I'm like, that thing that took 3 years should have taken 1. What was I doing? And all that. I think I'll say two things during that time. One is a lot of the time when the person's not working out in the role, they end up failing their peers as much as they end up failing you. And there's a bit of a situation there. And I'm not talking like people just can't get along. I'm talking like they're not delivering for one another. They're not showing up right. So the one team can't plan because the other team's just not doing the work. And so that's one source of like sort of, hey, I got to have a conversation here. You're not working with you're not giving them what they need, or they're failing their teams. And then the other thing that
so
was
that's bottom up, and then there's people who are on the team with them side by side with them.
And then the final direction, which was kind of tough for me, is they actually have to show up to me differently because you can't, like, I don't know, your one-on-one's a long time. When it's small, they're not they're not so formal, right? They're not just showing up with the deck and here's this and here's what I delivered. I almost feel like when it gets bigger, my department reviews with my execs, it's almost like the board meeting and I'm the board and they're showing up and presenting stuff and this is their time and we're checking in and I want to know how they're running things, what I can, unblock for them. And for a lot of people, when it's smaller, it just feels weird to start to show up to me in a much more formal way. And unless they do, I'm done because I just can't run it any other way.
Yeah. When you get to a certain scale, the stakes have gone up. And, if you look at it like the difference between playing basketball, pick up basketball in the park, you turn the ball over, whatever, you don't play defense. Who cares? It's a game in the park. But now you're the Knicks, you're in the playoffs, and you see some player is not hitting their free throws. The other team members are going to go to the coach and say, hey, we can't have this person in the game, or at least not in this role as a starter. Maybe they can come off the bench and do other things here, but they can't be, on the floor in the final 10 minutes.
And then I'm going to get pissed because we're a sponsor of the Knicks. We're on the jersey. And we're going to pull out.
That's right. You guys forgot that. You were the first.
Right. We're the first patch on the Knicks. That's right.
This is actually a very interesting thing. I think that you also were not only first on the logos on jerseys, because that was a big deal. People forgot that when the Knicks and a couple of teams tested that was a first for the NBA. There was big controversy about it. Oh my God, we're going to put a logo on the thing. You were also first to podcasting.
We were very, very early.
I mean, you were one of our first 5. I think one of our first is Bing, yourself, MailChimp, Walker Law. We had like 4 or 5 sponsors in the first year or two that were just incredibly supportive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing that for
over 10.
Oh, definitely.
Got to be 10 years. Yeah.
It's at least 12, maybe a little bit more. But I mean, it's always been a huge, great medium for us. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what was it about podcasting and the Knicks jerseys and these kind of things that you saw early as a marketer when at those times everybody was saying, buy Google ads, buy Facebook ads?
Well, we do that stuff too, right? I mean, so I would never, do brand at the exclusion of direct response that's working. And, also I might mention, I think we're at our 7th, 8th Super Bowl ad now. I mean, that's a lot. And when we were doing those a while ago, we were in an interesting context there. It was a lot of car companies and carbs and alcohol and, and then there's like websites. It's like, really? But it worked for us. I think to answer the original question though, regarding podcasts. So back then, it was much more of the Wild West. And what was great about it is you had these really great show creators who had a great connection with their audience. And for us to be able to go to somebody and educate them on the product and say, look, it's marked as an ad, of course. All of our ads are marked as ads. But we want to support you. And if you really like the product, talk about it. And people would do an ad read and it'd be authentic. And that would work with their audience. And they'd put a coupon code in the podcast. And they tell their listeners, hey, Squarespace is supporting the show. Use this coupon if you need a website, blah, blah, blah. And it gave us great attribution. It gave us great reach, right? Because podcasts are listened to in all, if we're doing an English podcast, non-English markets as well. So it gave us global reach. And, back before people would swap the ads out, the ad would just play forever.
Oh, that's right. I mean, certainly we hard code them into ours. So whatever ads you did over the decade, they're just there forever. And that was always my philosophy on it. So you got, I think, derided a little bit about doing the Super Bowl ads. Those cost millions of dollars to both produce, I think, and to run. Are they effective? I mean, I would assume you don't do them if they weren't. And are they effective in driving response, or are they effective in sort of building a brand that can then attract talent to come work for your company and to go public and to introduce yourself to investors?
So they're definitely not direct response, right? We don't think people, on their whatever drink are going to stop watching the Super Bowl to go make a website like in that moment. That's not what we're aiming at. We do see, so I'll say a couple things. One, it's the only time people want to see advertising.
That's true. That's such a great
That's it.
point.
There is no
a lot of times
other
the
one.
advertising is better than the game because Super Bowls tend to suck.
I watch it for the ads. And so like, I mean, and
no shame.
And no shame. And, you know, it's the time when, and I consider us an incredibly creative company. We're one of the few companies in tech, I think, that, you know, has had a chief creative officer as part of the executive team for over a decade. And it lets you show off creatively. You know, we do a little bit of avant-garde. You know, it's a bit hard for us sometimes because I think that, you know, the Super Bowl's just everyone, right? And so you can't get an ad that appeals to everyone unless it's like, I don't know, like a Budweiser puppy or horses and stuff. And we're not going to do that. That's not in our, you know, brand DNA. But there are millions and millions of people who are watching the Super Bowl, including everyone for every creative agency who made all those ads, by the way, watching every single one of them. That lets us put a cool message out there and show off creatively. And I just love the opportunity. And I'll say this too: of any kind of ad we do, that's the one I'm sure people saw. Like, not everyone does get seen by everybody, but in terms of like traffic to the site, you know, articles about it, both good and bad, whatever, because you're going to be at the top and the bottom of every Super Bowl ad meter or whatever. There's stuff like that. It's also the only ad we do that gets, you know, depending on the creative, be invited to shows on television. They play the ad for free.
Yeah,
and they
that's
ask
the
you to
crazy
talk
part about it.
Ask you to talk about it. I mean, like, no other thing has anything like that reach-wise and attention-wise. So it's incredibly, and even in like the second place thing you would do, like a Grammys or an Oscars or something, it's not even close to the same.
Yeah, no,
not even close.
Definitely not. And there were a number of times that people thought, well, you're going to get run over because there's so much competition that emerged in website building, and Google, I remember, was going to create the, you know, WordPress and Squarespace killer. Yeah. All of this sort of competitive landscape was very dynamic in your space. Yeah. Because once people saw your success, and I think, you know, what Matt was doing over at WordPress, you know, these two companies, you know, two different approaches, right? One's an open source, kind of messy, and then the other one is like elegant and, you know, refined. It's almost like Android and Apple, if you think about it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I didn't say it. You said it.
Well, I mean, I'm good friends with Matt. I'm friends with you. And like, I actually think it's, I think it's actually, the world needs both of those things. Some people would want to get under the hood and tinker and, you know, put plugins in, and other people want to have something elegant and simple.
Yeah, a lot of, I hung out with Matt a couple times, a lot of respect. He's a great guy. And, you know, they built something really great. But look, I mean, the design-centric side of things is in our DNA. We do that. Like, that's one of the founding principles, you know, for the company, that, you know, I wanted it to stand out in a certain way. We've invested in creative almost like no one else has. And so, yeah.
So when all these competitors happen and everybody's telling you like, oh, you're about to be roadkill, et cetera, how did you keep everybody sort of focused on the mission? One of the things that's, you know, obvious to your success is this relentless focus year after year. And I should say, like, everybody thinks this goes really fast, when in fact it's methodical and it's year after year, decade after decade. It is slow. When you get that product market fit, it's about building and delighting and refining. So how do you keep the team, you know, stoked to keep pursuing this with all this noise on the outside?
Look, I mean, so, you know, we get the competitive, I've gotten the competitive question the whole way through. It's funny to even get it now that we're a public company. People are like, oh my God, there's so many competitors. I'm like, you know, these days I kind of only hear about like 3. So I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's WordPress and Shopify, right? I mean, that's it.
Yeah, you know, maybe 1 or 2 others. But the, you know, like, back when I started, there were like, I felt like there were like 1,000, you know, and there still are a lot of niche ones. But you know, what's great about what we do is it's so broad that we can hit so many different verticals and so many different use cases. And like the stuff we do is just such like fundamental building block stuff, right? It's like a domain, a website, a flexible content management system, you know, e-commerce, physical products, digital products, donations, services, like all this stuff. It's so broad. And that's what enables us to do these kind of big ads. If it was so niche, you know, you can't do those kinds of ads. That's why the Super Bowl is like beer and cars and like laundry detergent. It's like stuff everyone has, right? And so we're not at that level, but it is a broadly used thing. Lots of people have websites. It's incredibly relevant in people's lives. Look, I mean, we try and remain innovative and to push things forward and push the envelope with our ads and our product releases. Sometimes we are rapid fire on those. Sometimes it takes longer than that. Every single person, in any of our positions, you want things to go twice as fast, and it just doesn't happen that way. It can't happen that way. But try and remain relevant, remain in front of trends. I mean, if you think about where we are right now, just to pick two off the top of my head, we've done a lot of investment in our member areas product, and that lets people make paywalls and subscription content. You can mix that with our email campaigns product and make a paid newsletter. You can mix that with our e-commerce products and have a paid newsletter where you're also selling a book all in one website. And I mean, that's amazing. And that's stuff that's just kind of starting to kind of pick up right now. And then also one of the things we did is a couple years ago, we joined forces. We acquired a company called Unfold, which lets people on Instagram and other social platforms. It started with stories, sort of to brand themselves and to help them stand out. And the insight there was, a long time ago, people would start with a domain, start with a website. A lot of people start with Instagram. Then they prove out their brand, they grow an audience, and they're trying to stand out there. And so Unfold is evolving now into a toolkit for creators where you're saying, hey, actually, you can make a site in your, you can create a super quick website, put a link in your bio, and we call it a bio site in 1 second, in 1 minute in the app, and it can help you schedule your Instagram story. It's like. It
was such a great purchase because it's such a great observation in that social media is the onboarding, not the website and domain anymore.
It's
people used to buy a domain. Yeah, people are starting there.
And they
link
still are.
in bio is such a really weird device that occurred because Zuckerberg didn't want, or Instagram didn't want people clicking out.
Right.
So because of that, it created this weird behavior. Do a link in bio.
Totally.
And now that link in bio is a mini micro website. And there's like 10 competitors in this space. And you were smart enough to buy this site, bio.site.
Well, we actually, we call them bio sites. We actually developed that after, internally inside Unfold, after they joined with us. And so, I mean, Unfold's been moving at an amazing clip. Has great success. I mean, Unfold's in the top 10 in graphics and design in about like a little under 100 countries. I mean, it's got over 140,000 ratings in the App Store. It's got a lot of traction. And so when we roll out things like bio sites and make that available to millions of people all at once and make that like super easy, it's pretty exciting. It's really it's a great angle for us.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's a singularity occurring in design, social, and publishing and the creator economy. You have Canva on one side saying, hey, create stuff. And they're starting on the margins to maybe getting into hosting stuff and graphics. And then you have on the other side, people like yourselves. And then you have the Patreons. Now Twitter is adding subscriptions. I guess Substack, Twitter bought Review, their email product. But making it one product and people not having to manage 7 different services is really the vision, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what we've been just dead set on. Again, going back to our kind of all-in-one philosophy and our take on the web over the past 10 years, it's just been, looking at how people are transacting. We have an 8-year investment in our e-commerce product. We have a multi-year investment in our email campaigns product, multiple-year investment in our member areas product. And now via some acquisitions over the past couple of years, we bought a company called Acuity, which is, a huge player in its space for scheduling. It's doing amazing. I
remember that one. So so now if you own a hair salon or you're a masseuse,
right, you're booking appointments.
It's
right?
just built in.
And if you think about it, you talk about, okay, look, obviously Shopify is incredible. It's an amazing company. I think they've done a great job.
Of course,
it's selling physical products. They may expand beyond that. But how many people are selling services? How many people are selling subscriptions to content? I mean, that's a huge, huge opportunity. It's just everyone's focused on that because it's so that, it's the obvious public competitor. But like, as we all know, SaaS businesses are amazing. What happens when you democratize access to recurring revenue to so many people who are selling so many kinds of things? It's fantastic. So we're really ahead of that. And I'm that's where I'm focused.
It's a great focus because if you think about Kevin Kelly's, whatever it was, 1,000 or 2,000 true fans, if you, as Squarespace, enable some writer, some photographer, painter, whatever, masseuse, whatever the gig is, to just get their 1,000 true fans to pay a $5, $10, $20 a month subscription, that person is now an amazing entrepreneur and sustainable for the rest of their lives.
And they can do it themselves. They
You
can do it
don't need
themselves.
to have a tech person or anybody to add to that mix. When you look at email, do you guys charge like consumption-based email, or do you just throw that in like as part of the project, as part of the?
It's a separate
service?
subscription that has like a quantity associated with it. It's very competitively priced.
What did you think about the MailChimp and
The MailChimp
selling
to Intuit thing?
Yeah, I have a theory, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh, I want to hear yours too. Let me think here.
Because they said they would never sell.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what? How old are they? 18 years?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's getting close to 20. For sure, it's over 10. We know that.
I started
it's at
least
using
15.
It in
It's at least 15 years old.
15, yeah. 15
Let's call it
sure.
15 to 20 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh my God, 2001 they launched, so it's 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that far. Wow.
No, I mean, I knew it was really, they had a great run. At some, you got to get into the psyche, I think, of the founders. And I met Ben once or twice at a dinner. And it was a while ago. And so you don't know, but I mean, what's the tenure of most CEOs?
Yeah.
Is it 25 years? Is it 30 years? Is it 20 years? I mean,
Hired
that's a
CEOs,
long...
it's under 10, and 5 probably. And then
what about founder CEOs? I mean,
it's gotta
30?
Be,
How many hit 30?
Maybe 20. Yeah, maybe 20.
So these are 20 years. And at some point, the bigger company, like we were referencing earlier, you are doing a very different thing day to day than what you were doing when you were, creating things. You either have to find ways to make that energizing for you, or, you just kind of might get sick of it all and sick of all the requests and everything that people want. And, the HR job becomes, a lot. The PR job becomes a lot. And, we exist in today's world where, a lot of, it's a tough world to navigate, even if you have the best intentions. And so you're 20 years in, maybe it's just sick of it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think there's an exhaustion that happens. I mean, you're basically running a marathon every year filled with a bunch of sprints and a bunch of hikes in between. It never ends. And I was going to say my theory on it was, if you look at Review and Substack and some of those folks, I think they're looking at email and saying, well, we're not going to just charge for email. So you have some competitors out there that maybe say, you know what, that's why I was asking, like, do you charge for it or not? Like maybe email becomes free up until X amount, and it just becomes a less high margin business. And they were pure play, right? Just email.
They've tried to pivot out of it. Yeah, they say they do like websites, and it's not really a thing we find competitive. And it's like, I mean, in some ways, I wonder about the companies, and I wonder if their name and what they've done actually, even if they can innovate outwards, constrains them, right? Yes. MailChimp. Are you going to go to MailChimp or Squarespace? I mean, come on. Like, you're going to go to Squarespace. Like, we've spent $1 billion associating ourselves with this. And they have the name Mail in the name. And then, Shopify, similarly, Shop, you have it in your name. And we don't have website in our name, but we did spend $1 billion making you associate that. Yeah. And so, it's kind of interesting.
I thought it was interesting also, people were a little outraged. Oh my God, people didn't have equity. The whole value proposition they had to people was, we're going to max out your 401ks. We're going to pay above market salaries, and we're going to give these huge bonuses every year. They had profit sharing, and people were making, pretty serious money for working in Atlanta. They were the best paying place in Atlanta for sure.
Look, because we have other equity investors, I think it makes sense for like a company like ours to think about an equity program. Obviously, we're public now. I want to align people for, I want them to be shareholders. That's part of our DNA. But in a place where they own everything and they're saying we're never exiting, why would you want equity?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense at all. You're basically here's dead end equity. And they could create a phantom, kind of equity program inside. I think does Bloomberg do that?
I think some people have done this phantom equity thing.
Like the private, like there's going to be a way to do it. I mean, we all get 409As or whatever.
I think the way these phantom things work is they're like, in the case that there's a sale, you have this many units out of the 100 units. You have 1 unit, you have 0.5 units, whatever it is. And if we have a sale, you would get that percentage of the sale, but it's, it's more taxable as income than anything else. And these people got 3-year programs.
Or you could just simply go, hey, look, we're never going to go public, but we're going to do a 409A every quarter. And every quarter, we'll buy back X at the 409A price, which is pegged to some public company multiples, this and this percent. Okay, fine. It's some kind of fair market value. It's not like I think the public markets give you fair value.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, we'll get to that in a minute. But
am I allowed to say that?
The public markets are challenging because they could either overestimate your business or they could underestimate it, and you have no control over that, and you must sit there and work while somebody is measuring your company incorrectly. It can be brutal both ways. I mean, you had some of these companies that went out and SPAC'd, like Nikola, that became worth $30 or $40 billion, and they have no cars on the road. It's a total scam. And they're being indicted. It's insane. Let me ask you this. I know you had offers along the way to sell out. You didn't. Yeah. What was your thinking on that? Did you ever come close to thinking, yeah, you know what, this would be a great moment for me personally to cash in my chips? And how do you mitigate that as the founder? You know, these big offers that come in.
Well, I mean, one of the ones that kind of kicked off the whole sort of where we are now situation is, so, I started the business taking, $30,000 from my parents and ran it to cash flow break even for 7 years. And then somewhere along the way, I can say, I mean, it was, we got an offer to buy Squarespace from Getty Images a long time ago.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so that's how, so Jonathan, the founder of Getty, is still on our board. And through some roundabout, series of testing the waters with that. What does that mean? No, I don't want to do it. Like all that stuff. Ended up finding a different route, which was saying, look, I don't think I need to own all of this. I want to do some secondary. I don't need a lot of primary because I'm cash flow break even. And I think the board and the outside validation would help me attract the kind of people that wouldn't join a company that's just the 27-year-old Anthony Casalena show. Who knows what this is? It seems promising, but really? I'm going to, I'm 10 years older than this guy, whatever. I'm just going to leave and just, okay, that's the next step of my career. So it's limiting. And so I think via just operating the company to not big losses and break even, it provides opportunities for even more secondary along the way, as people became comfortable with that notion. And and that was...
You did repurchases with General Atlantic and some other folks along the way, if I remember.
Totally. Yeah. Multiple.
How do you manage those with, the team? I know that this is complicated because you've got people who've been there for 8 years, you got people who've been there 4 years, people who've been there for 8 months. How do you mechanically operate, or how did you,
these tender offers?
Those tender offers, and keeping people from getting wildly distracted or greedy or, whatever can happen when money's involved. Yeah.
Hey, look, I mean, a couple things. One, on the later rounds, people were able to sell, I believe it was up to 20% and up to 30% at the same terms as everybody on those later rounds. So it wasn't like you could just dump everything.
Pari passu, I guess, or pari passu, yeah. Everybody sells at the same percentage, yeah.
Yeah, they could do right. And now, I mean, look at the world we're in right now. We're public. People can sell whatever they want. They can buy whatever they want. There's no lockups. And that's that. And I think, look, if you like what you're doing and you're still having fun and it's still a growth story, it's not like because people have maybe made a lot of money that they are ready to leave the workforce.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they want to be entrepreneurs, frankly. I mean, a lot of people who've been doing the job on bigger teams, whatnot, they don't want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to start something.
Right.
So, do they want an industry change? Are they unhappy? Would they like a similar job at another company? Maybe, maybe not. Especially if you're doing it for a while, you have a lot of good relationships. I think, I certainly wouldn't be doing this anymore if I thought we were sort of like out of steam or something. I think we do lots of exciting things. Right. And so, so that's the equation.
So you didn't have this fear that, we're going to give liquidity. People are going to run for the doors after they cash in their chips. People stuck around.
Yeah. I had that fear, but I think the reality of it is, what are you going to do during the day? Okay, your house is, you have 5 bedrooms instead of 1. I don't know. What do you want to do? Did you want to leave the workforce? Did you want to start something? It's an enabler for people. And frankly, if somebody's here and they're just so completely miserable anyway, they're just waiting for their money, that's not the person I really want to work with on my team.
Yeah, it's better for them to have that opportunity.
It would be better for them to leave. So there are many people at Squarespace that are pretty wealthy. And, we're all kind of working on these things, myself included. I mean, I did secondary 10 years ago. I'm still here. and the company is, what, 40, 50 times
I
bigger?
think the secondary thing has been absolutely fantastic for employees and for founders so that they go longer. When I was coming up as an entrepreneur, just before you, and I sold Weblogs Inc., there was no concept of, hey, here's an investor. They're putting $2 million into the business, and they're going to give you and Brian Alvey and Peter Rojas $1 million each. Keep going. You can pay for your apartment. That didn't exist as a concept.
Back then, when I did the index Excel thing in 2010, half the people who were looking at us were like, great business, won't do this deal. You're asking for too much secondary. And I was like, I don't need to do a deal with any of you. It's cash flow break even. You can either be a part of this story or not. They're like, how? What? You get all this money, you're going to go anywhere. Where? I still want to build this thing. If I wanted to go somewhere, I would sell it. So
interesting. So they basically, at that time, people were so anti-secondary, they were like, I'm not going to even touch this deal. What a stupid decision on their basis.
Well, not all of them. I mean, some of them
the ones who turned it down, I mean, they missed huge returns.
But you know what's interesting? It's like, okay, well, where does that mentality come from? The financial people. Or the financial, it's like money, maybe this is everything. They're just going to leave with this. Because I think there's a lot of people, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, that maybe would leave financial jobs if they had certain amounts of money. I don't know. And there's other people who love it. I don't want to generalize.
No, in the finance space, they look at the finance and it's like, well, that is the end game. And so if we let them hit the, end zone, they're going to leave. They're going to get the championship. They're done. And they don't realize that it's the joy of playing the game for a founder, the joy of building a team and being part of some camaraderie that is actually making them show up. And a lot of people in the industry, I think even Fred Wilson, Ron Conway, when secondaries came out, and obviously I'm very friendly with Fred, they were like, I'm not so sure about this. And he struggled on his blog with like, what is the right amount? And what it actually did was the opposite of what the majority thought. The majority thought this would be a distraction and it would make founders quit. And it turned out it made founders go long and it made everybody more aligned because the venture capitalists are making $1 million a year in fees or $2 million a year. They're swimming in it. So they wanted to.
Maybe that's the funny irony of it too. They seem to be making a great amount. They're not going anywhere.
That is
what's so far into about this concept.
I think they have to remember in the balance of power prior to 2010, let's say, before Facebook and Uber was, and before Y Combinator, really, I give Paul Graham some credit here. That it was the founders are, serve at the behest of the investors, and you will be replaced. And
I certainly, you will be replaced. That's a good one. I mean, but also, there's something to it too, in the sense that, like, I think if, you have a lot of resources available to you throughout your whole life, it might change your hunger level for pursuing an entrepreneurial idea. Maybe.
Right. Maybe.
That's not a, maybe.
Yeah, if you're a trust fund kid.
Crazy idea. Yeah. Maybe.
The difference is these are people who've already selected into starting a company. Yeah, they've already selected that they want to be in pain and suffering every day of their life.
Yeah, so, even if they didn't realize how much pain and suffering they would be in.
It's painful. But
it is.
I don't know if you had near-death experiences, but take me to the darkest moments, now that you got the victory and things are going so well. When you look back on it, was there ever an existential moment where you thought, this thing's not going to work out?
I'd say there were a lot of existential moments, but I didn't have one that was like, this won't work out. Okay. Because after year 1 or 2, it always worked out. Yeah. But the question is it going to kill me along the way? And that was like kind of, some different things. In the early years, it was a lot of where my stress came from, and all this stuff is like so much easier nowadays. It's like, it was infrastructure.
Going down,
I was running the servers going down, or like DDoS attacks, and there was no Cloudflare. And, I just like be writing scripts to try and update the load balancer to hopefully get the thing back on. It's just madness. And it's like, and I'm waking up. I'm the one waking up with the pings on my phone at any given hour, and it's real. And, fine, I have 5 people in the team, but the other 4 don't know how to fix it. And they're also not responding in 1-minute response times like I'm going to do it any hour of the day. And after, 10 more years of that, I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it, right? You're like, I don't know if it's worth it. Or I think there are moments around, look, when the team is much smaller, not even when the team is bigger, but when the team is much smaller, 1, 2, 3 people leave, one person leaves, and their 2, 3 friends leave. And then it's like, it's a 15%. And it's like, oh my God, a whole portion of this company left.
Right.
And it can feel really awful. And
it's destabilizing.
It's destabilizing. People are like, what am I doing here? These
they're
smart
quitting
people
on you,
left.
right? They're basically voting with their feet that I don't want to be here.
I don't want to do this. And then some friends of theirs leave and all that. I had some really dark moments around that. And I ended up realizing that it was actually so good because it cleaned out the personalities that didn't want to be there. If they were just there because they liked one person, you shouldn't be at the company. And I know there's a bit more to that in the sense that, you know, most people's experience at a company is about their experience with their manager. They can like me all they want or not like me, but if they've got a manager that's awful, they're going to leave. It doesn't matter what the mission is. So, you know, but
it's so interesting.
The
Those
personnel stuff was just really hard.
Those are such acute moments. And I have had founders call me, you know, people have invested in, you know, basically in tears. My CTO just resigned.
Yeah. And what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to even explain it to people?
How am I going to explain to people that this person that I went to my board and fought for their comp package is leaving 18 months later?
Yep.
It's shame. You have shame. You're distraught because you feel like it took 6 months to find them. I mean, I think you're personally hurt. It's like a divorce or something, you know. I think I haven't been through one, but I've seen them up close and man, it's just painful. And people forget services used to go down and they sometimes would go down for days, and people thought Twitter was going to fail and go out of business because they couldn't keep the servers up. Because right before that, I think you are old enough to remember this, Friendster and MySpace basically died because they couldn't keep the servers up.
That was going to be my next question to you, actually. I was like, can you recall the last company that actually died due to real technical problems? And those are the ones that come to mind for me.
Yeah, I mean, the reason Facebook
Can you think of any other ones?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give it some more thought here, but I do think the reason Facebook worked so well was I can remember the days where Friendster was down and people would go to MySpace, or MySpace was down, people would go over to Friendster. Like they literally would just have the same friend groups and they were kind of load balancing between the two.
And they were down for a while.
They were down for 2 days.
It's not like 15 minutes.
They would be rebuilding the index. We're rebuilding the database. God, it was just like, sorry to give you PTSD, but...
Oh, yeah, you're going to. I mean the other
feel it in your throat. Yeah.
I mean, the other scary, again, it's always infrastructure. Another rough moment for Squarespace was during Hurricane Sandy.
Oh,
where our only data center was downtown, and all and
salt water in the basement.
Yep, the whole basement, and that's where the fuel tank was. And so when and so it flooded the fuel tank, and we couldn't get fuel into the and so I walked down to the data center because the guys who run the data center remember this guy Mike, and because I installed all the servers, and I'm like, Mike, what's going on? And he's like, we're going to run, you got to shut down. And I remember being like, okay, go to the roof, see how much fuel we have. Everyone else in the data center shuts down. I don't, because I'm there. I'm telling my people, don't shut down. I actually see the fuel level. And so then we got all this power because everyone else shut off and I didn't. So now it extended the runway, and we ended up taking fuel up the stairs to save the thing. Yeah, it's a crazy story. It's for another time. But but that was the last time I was like, I am so screwed. It's going to go down for days.
Well, I mean, there was no power below 14th Street or something, or I don't know if it was Canal. For days, right? That was
But even worse than that, it was by building, right? So some buildings, infrastructure was so damaged. I mean, our data center was like condemned. Like, our data center's condemned? Like, you can't go in? Like, what does this mean?
Not safe for humans.
Not safe for humans. I mean, flooded. I mean, so that was crazy. Like, we're obviously.
But all that, it's interesting. All that pain and suffering led other entrepreneurs, whether it's Rackspace or, AWS, and to build an infrastructure layer that was redundant, that dealt with denial of service and all of these issues. My Lord, is it different now? I mean,
it's so different.
How much of the initial money that you took from your parents went to servers?
Almost all of it.
Almost all of it, right? That was what you needed the money for.
That's the one thing I couldn't do, right? I could like fake the things I couldn't do were I couldn't do the server, obviously some of the legal setup, but you just do the minimal stuff. And then, I can code, do the infrastructure, do the marketing. I can do all that stuff to varying levels of what a proficiency. I can't do vector arts. I couldn't draw the logo. So I went and bought a logo.
Nicely done. There used to be, when I was doing Weblogs Inc. and we were doing Engadget, Autoblog, Joystick, there was a website. I don't know if it was 99 Designs or some other one.
Yeah, that's one.
That was one. And there was one where you would do a design competition. And I was like, this is great. I put up a $200 logo contest and I get all of these, things. And then I give some feedback and then they would do it. And I got in so much trouble with the design community because I said something nice about this on my blog. And they were like, no, you're supposed to pay $10,000 for a logo. And I was like, I'm negative 10,000 on my credit cards at Weblogs Inc. I was
Squarespace.
Literally negative.
Oh my God, Squarespace. I mean, we look, we're big fans of the design community. We want to build tools for them. We, all that. At some point, we launched a simple logo creation tool, Squarespace logo, and somebody who was writing the copy wrote the copy in a way that insinuated it replaces a professionally designed logo, which it does not. And that's not right. And I just didn't read. I didn't know. I didn't read the copy closely enough. And it was outrage. How could they? And I was like, that's not what that was a mistake.
Not what we're doing here.
And it was I was like, guys, if you saw the number of the stuff on Squarespace websites, you would realize that the alternative to a professionally designed logo isn't that. It's somebody screwing up completely or not having a logo at all. You have to bring up the bottom. It's not replacing the top. No. I mean, no.
Getting a logo designed, I think, is about the process of thinking and being thoughtful about what your brand stands for and talking to a designer.
It's very important.
About how to manifest that in an emotional way with an object of art.
Yeah.
That's different than somebody setting up their blog for the first time or their, iPhone case website where they want to sell iPhone cases and they just need to throw something up and they have no money to spend.
And look, there's tons of use cases on Squarespace where someone would never buy a professional logo because it's like a project or like a non-profit, not a non-profit, but like a event for your, a teachers group for your school or something. And we're not getting professional logo design. What are you talking about? But you need something to sit there on the site. So,
What do you think about Canva's business at all? I know, obviously, watching what Patreon did, watching Shopify success, other folks, has informed a little bit of the new mission, which, everything to sell anything is such a great tagline, by the way. When I heard you say it on CNBC, everything to sell anything, just I remember it.
That's amazing.
That's a good sign for, because it used to be Squarespace, make a beautiful website or something.
Yeah, or it does build beautiful. There was a million different ones. Make it.
Yeah. And it's everything to sell anything is just crisp. I don't know if you wrote it or that was with a communications company.
It's our incredible creative team and incredible head of creative. So, no, we do that stuff internally.
Everything to sell anything is great.
It's great.
It really describes what you're doing. So
and it's the positioning, because everyone wants to say, oh, it's for Shopify. Yeah, some part of it is.
Sure.
But there's so much more to it.
Yes. You're not just selling things that are going to come in a brown box.
Correct.
Now, what about Canva's business, though? Because creating objects and art, what they've done is obviously amazing, and they have a natural path to do a little bit of hosting. Are you building or thinking about their building tools and as that as a potential project?
Well, in our product suite right now, we've got two things. By the way, Canva, great job, amazing traction. Amazing.
Great product.
Inside Unfold, there's studio tools that let you do some, creation. Obviously, it also works for stories. And as part of our product launch the other day, we launched a product called Squarespace Video Studio, which it's kind of, the word magical gets overused, but you can point it at the content on your site and it actually creates video assets for you that look pretty good. And I say that because when the thing was pitched internally, I was like, I don't believe you. It's not going to work. They created something great there. And video assets are incredibly difficult for people to create. And to have a simple tool that's part of your Squarespace plan that lets you do that, I think is good. So we're attacking, I would say image and video asset creation separately. It's something we're interested in. You'll see more from us there.
There was a great product you have. You made an app back in the Evernote note-taping time period.
Oh my God.
It was a weekend project.
Oh no.
Called Squarespace Note.
Oh God.
I was addicted.
I'm addicted. Oh my God.
And it was
you're triggering me.
It was so great. I think you and I were the three people, amongst the three people who loved it.
Yeah.
You could type a note, swipe up, and it would email it to you or put it into your whatever. You could sync it with anything. And it was so elegant and simple. I used it for, 5 years. I loved it. It was a great little experiment.
100 million times a day, every day of my life.
Right.
And now I have another app. Like I found some app that did something similar. My team, it was like mutiny. They're like, Anthony, this doesn't fit into the product. How does this deal with? And I was like, no, guys, you don't understand. It's an ideation narrative, and ideas start somewhere, and then they grow up in the websites and domains. And this is how people can. I was like trying my hardest to justify, and they're like, we don't care, no. And I'm like, it's true. And they're like, we can't devote resources to it. I'm like,
resources. It's as simple as one person.
It's as simple as happening to work. I mean, I was just like, you know what? I'm done the fight. Yeah. Like it's less than one person's time, but I'm not.
This is when you know
I'm not going to fight this fight. I'm not going to fight this fight.
You've built a good organization is when the people around you can tell you when you're off mission, right? And say like, "Hey, Anthony, I know that you think this is our mission."
They may have had to tell me 40 times.
That's founder privilege. All right, wrapping up. Tell me why a direct listing? Why not a traditional? Why not a SPAC? Why not stay private? Take me through your decision-making process.
I think the stay private one's pretty easy, which is it just feels like we're just going to do these endless private rounds at what is quote unquote a discount to the public markets. But you know, it's a lot of work. Sometimes they come together really nicely. Sometimes you really struggle, and everyone's always then, well, what's the next step? How are we getting out? How is the public? You know, blah, blah, blah. And it's just this loop of a conversation. And unless you're willing to, I think, buy out who's in there and they want to do a slow buyout or something, people need liquidity at some point. And the only way out of that, again, is to buy them out or go public, or you're like MailChimp, who you just referenced, which is under no impetus to do
why direct
anything.
versus SPAC versus traditional? Did Bill Gurley have any impact on you, or watching Spotify be so successful?
He definitely reached out and was very pleased at our, with our decision. The traditional, because again, we didn't need primary.
Right. You didn't need more money. Right.
We didn't really need more money. Now, we did do a primary round before going out to sort of like level set, get some other investors in who we would hopefully buy more. So, but we sort of did it on our terms very, very rapidly, and we didn't need to do it via another mechanism. I liked the no lockup thing. Most of it was just around not needing to raise primary and just like, let's just flip over, and, I knew that would be chaotic. Maybe it's a little more chaotic than I thought it would be.
Has it been?
Really, but what's interesting is you really got to have a nuanced take, I think, when making this decision for any company, because as you know, a SPAC can be ideal for certain companies that are less known quantities. I mean, we're such a, in my opinion, easy to understand business. It's a lot of predictable. It's been around for a long time, so I just didn't see the reason for the SPAC. The other thing to keep in mind, I think, for people who are maybe considering these different options is, companies have very different ownership structures. I mean, some people have a zillion people on their cap table. They've got 20 different outside investors. I mean, Squarespace is very, and all this is public, of course, because you can look at our cap table on S1. But I mean, I'm still the largest shareholder, and then you've got Index, General Atlantic, and Excel, each with big positions. And then, everyone else, the acquired companies, all the employees and everything else. But that's unique, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty weird. Usually you see more participants, stuff like that. Now, some more were in there as of that primary round that we did before going public, but it's interesting. Anyway, there's more to that. But
and so far, enjoying being public, or has it been a distraction for the employees and you, or because it's been 6 months, I think, right? Yeah, kind of right around there. Just under 6 months.
May 19th,
May,
June,
so
July,
June, July, August, September,
April.
October. Yeah, just under 6 months.
Under 6 months.
4 months. This is recent.
Look, it's certainly probably weird for people who have only experienced straight up and to the right with Squarespace. Maybe not going up and to the right as much as they want, but always up and to the right. So they've never seen anything go down at all.
Right.
They've definitely never seen it, on a day-to-day basis. Earnings calls and whatnot's new. I'm trying to figure out why it's going up, why is it going down, all this stuff. And it's like, guys, there are metagames at play here that are so weird with hedge funds and whatnot and retail and volume that, are just, this is
out of your control. Yeah.
It's totally different. It's a totally different world. And, I know it's just super cliche, but it has to work itself out over the long run.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
because it goes down. You're just creating opportunities when people see the its price, it goes up. People are going to sell and take. It's just going to keep doing that. You look at I just point people at any of their favorite tech companies' stocks that have been public for 3 years and go peak to trough, peak to trough, peak to trough. Look, up 20, down 30, up 20, down 40. Like it's all over the place.
I mean, the first couple of years of Facebook were, I think, the scariest for a lot of Facebook investors who sold out at $20 a share. A lot of them I know. And, they were just like, this is too scary for me. I can't be it's worth $20 a share, $18 a share. I can't do it. And they literally cleared their positions at $18 a share.
Somebody referenced that the other day and they're like, everyone forgets about Facebook's early, couple of years. And then the other thing I pointed people to, I think people just see that the whole public company thing is some sort of like weird ending, which I can't, you know what I mean? People call it an exit, right? They call it an exit. Some people say it's an exit. I'm like, it's a beginning, guys. And look at these other companies that you love. Do a 5-year view on their stock. If they do really well, they're going up thousands of %. I mean, you can crush it. I mean, all the stuff that Apple did that you love, they did it while they were public, guys. Think about that. And
the iPhone, they existed
all
before
after they were
the
public.
iPhone.
Yes, it's all after they were public. And so, it's a financial event. It puts us on a cadence that says, hey, every quarter, rightly or wrongly, short term or whatever, you're going to be judged for how you did. And if you did well, you're going to go up a bit. If you did poorly, you're going to go down a bit. And none of that's permanent if you can continue to do a good job. And there's no next question of when are we going private? When are we going double public? This is just a steady state now. And
steady state. Just go to work. All right, listen, man. Congratulations. Thanks for supporting the show over the years. It's been great to know you, and I'll look forward to sitting in your courtside seats when I come out for the Knicks game. You still got the logo on the Knicks or no?
Yeah. We renewed for.
So they treat you well when you go there. You must be baller when you go there.
They're somewhat nice to me, I believe, due to the whole money component of this.
Yes,
they're very nice to me.
So I will.
I'll see you.
I will be inviting myself to go to a game with you.
Oh, that'll be hilarious.
Well, I went to the 2 playoff games last year because it was the first time they were in the playoffs in a long time. It was absolutely wonderful because people forget that was when vaccines all hit a certain amount, and I was there too. You were there when they let us sit in the lower bowl with no masks.
So they were. I was there on one of the playoff games that was full vaccine.
That's what I was there for too.
It was incredible.
The energy was twofold.
Nuts.
The Knicks are winning. The Knicks are a great team again, and New York is back.
Yes,
and we're gonna have a life post pandemic.
It was a real moment.
It was a
real
super
feeling.
moment. I was so emotional to be in there with no mask on and saying, you know what, there is going to be life after the pandemic. Yeah. Are you going to bring everybody back to the office? Because you had a great office culture, New York culture.
Definitely. And by the way, I'm in New York right now. New York feels great. Anyone saying this New York's dead?
New York doesn't die. It just goes through seasons.
What?
New York doesn't die. It can have seasons, right? And the rebirth when New York, when I came up in New York in the 90s, I'm just slightly older than you. It was fucking great that New York was a little bit in the dumps because I was able to live in a loft, a commercial loft, and nobody cared. It was lawless.
No one cared. Yeah, I got to New York in 06. It's a little after, but.
Yeah, no, and that's when it was okay, everything's got to be formalized, yada, yada. You can't break the law. You can't live in a commercial loft. And now I understand it's a little loosey-goosey. People are staying in the park too late. I get it. But now artists can live in Manhattan again, right?
It's raw. I'm not sure if we're there yet.
Yeah.
But it does feel a little bit, it feels more raw. I mean, which I personally like. In terms of the office, so I'm in the office right now. We're in our podcast studio. And I was here yesterday. We were doing a toast for our product launch and the, everything to sell anything positioning. And we had 180 people here.
Wow.
And we're not forcing anyone to come in. It's more pull versus push.
Yeah.
And, everybody I was talking to, they're just I forgot how great this was. I was we get energy. We're social creatures. We get energy from being around people we like. I like the people I work with. Yeah. And people are so surprised. It's it's better than sitting home alone all the time. What were you thinking? And so we're doing everyone's required to do a vaccine to come into the office, which is sort of a no-brainer for us. We did a survey. 90% of people did it by themselves without us asking.
Yeah, these are well-educated people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like through the roof. And so it's like, okay, sorry, the last 10% of you are going to have to do this. And then, look, I mean, we were never a rigid work culture. We were never, you have to be here 5 days a week, you're getting in at 9, and you're clocking out at 5, and we're tracking every hour. No, it was always somewhat flexible. We always had some portion of the employees that were remote. The company we acquired, Acuity, they're all remote. So it's not like we had no remote employees. So we'll have some more. You know, it's not like we had an inflexible schedule before. Okay, we'll have some more. Okay, we'll start drawing people back. Okay, we'll start turning on the office services. And you know, eventually there might be a bit more of a push at some point. But, you know, I don't think it wasn't so inflexible before, is all I would say. So you know,
people needed to pick their kids up, or you know, they weren't feeling well and wanted to work the morning from home. Like, nobody is going to begrudge.
Yeah, nobody's like, no,
you still have that beautiful space because you loaned me your space for when I had my book party and somebody interviewed me. It was great.
Yeah, the one in downtown. The west, near the West Village.
Yeah, I mean, what a beautiful space you have.
Yes, I remember that you did your book party here. Yeah, I'm in it now. Yeah, I'm in a podcast studio within it, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was incredibly nice of you. It's nice to have friends. I was just like, I emailed you and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a book thing. Do you know everybody's space? And you're like, oh, use my space for free. Dude, we'll put food out. And I was like, oh, dude, so nice of you.
Yeah, taking the space, taking the Knicks tickets. I mean, what's there, Jason? What can I take?
I'm going to take, I'll tell you what, I'll take you out. I got a good, you like Peking duck? I got a good Peking duck place in New York.
All right.
Have you ever been to Red Farm Decoy?
I love Red Farm Decoy. Oh, okay. That is one of my, my God. My God.
I love the whole Jewish Chinese. He's got like these dumplings with, is it brisket in them or corned beef?
Oxtail? No, it's a pastrami egg roll.
Pastrami egg roll. That's it. The pastrami egg roll is off the charts. And then I always reserve at Red Farm Decoy the Peking duck, which is just extraordinary. It's just such a great place.
That place.
But let's do that. You get the tickets. I'll get the Peking.
I think it's a fair trade, right?
I think it's kind of a fair trade. Depends on how good the seats are.
It feels fair. I mean, it's
some cost.
It's a pastrami egg roll. I mean,
it's a pastrami egg roll. We're in.
It's amazing.
All right, brother. Continued success. Congratulations on everything, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side of the pandemic.
Awesome. Thanks for inviting me back.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.